Mars, colonization of Mars. Let's talk about Mars colonization. Why we're still not on Mars, when more than 50 years ago people were walking on the moon. What's the problems with colonization of the Mars scientists and researchers, engineers facing these days? What's the main problem we'll face when we land on Mars? Let's talk about that. Mars, one of the 4 terrestrial planets in proximity to the Earth, located in the habitat spectrum close to the Sun. It's not as violent and aggressive as Venus, and it's not as hot as Mercury. It has some similarities with the Earth, and for now, up to date, it's the most inviting planet to colonize after the Earth. But so far, not human footstep on the Mars. Why? Let's first talk about the Mars' main physical properties that doesn't let us to go there right now. First of all, the main problem on the Mars right now for human being is that it doesn't have geomagnetic field. The geomagnetic field is so important for the organisms living on any planet, like we have on the Earth, to create the protection from sun radiation. If you watch my previous videos about the Sun solar system, you will learn that all planets in the solar system are under the influence of wind radiation. So to speak, we are located in the Sun atmosphere. What it does do, it's constantly bombarding us with radiation, with the rays coming from the Sun. And if we have any particular events happening on the Sun, like burst of sunspots, we have the wave of big radiation coming towards all the planets around it. Planets like Earth will be protected by our geomagnetic field, although we still might experience some interruptions in electricity or effect on the human health due to this outburst of the sun activity. Imagine if we didn't have atmosphere and geomagnetic field like happening right now on the Mars. It's for sure will cause deadly disease for all the life organisms or even death. That's what waits for us on the Mars. Mars has a core, and it's mostly composed of iron and nickel, but unfortunately this core is mostly solid right now. Some scientists suggest there's still some liquid parts of the core, but most of it's solidified a million years ago or more, and it stopped producing geomagnetic field around the planet. As a result, wherever there was the atmosphere before, which we will study in the future by exploring the deposits on the Mars, it's not there anymore. Constant solar wind stripping away all the molecules and particles of the surface of the Mars atmosphere, and have very, very weak layer of mostly carbon dioxide air, 95% of which is composing the modern atmosphere. The rest 5% it's nitrogen and argon gases, and some less than % traces of oxygen in the atmosphere on the Mars. Therefore, you understand, for human and any other life forms that will come to the planet Mars, it's impossible to breathe the air there. Just because of the smaller size of the Mars in comparison with the Earth, it's about twice smaller diameter of the planet. However, there's no oceans, so most of the territory is the land. It's equivalent to the land that we have right now on the Earth, just because we have about 28% of the Earth's planet as the land, the rest of it is the ocean. Surface of the Mars, it's almost equal to that. However, because there's no atmosphere, no geomagnetic field, there's much more rougher condition in terms of temperature. We have ocean and thick atmosphere on the planet Earth that protect us from overcooling when we turned away from the sun, and protect us from overheating when we face towards the sun. On the Mars, different story. Mars is mostly reddish color planet due to high percentage of iron and oxygen in the surface, giving this rusty red look. And wherever sun rays falling down on its surface, they heat up the surface so much, and there's no big atmosphere to trap the heat. So when the night happens, when the Mars turned away from the sun, it's cooled down up to -60, 80 or even 120 degrees. It's cooled down straight away dramatically. For life forms, apart from extremophiles, the life forms that like to live in extreme conditions, this is basically deadly. So if we will want to live on Mars, we should spend most of our time in the shelters or under the surface, where the temperature will be more uniform. Apart from the atmosphere composition, we can wear scaphanders on Mars. Apart from different gravity, it's slightly smaller than on Earth. On Mars, about 37.5% of the Earth's gravity, so you feel 3 times lighter when you're on Mars. Will have effect on your bones and muscle structure and blood pressure and other vital processes in your body. However, you can deal with that if you stay not too long on Mars. But the most deadly effect you will have from the radiation coming from the galactic space and the sun. There is no protection from those events there. And recently the rovers on Mars find that the radiation on Mars exceeding our expectation at least 2 or 3 times, and when we have big events on the sun, the radiation exceeded 25 times our expectations. After that event, more probably the life form will die, who are not protected from radiation. So the main problem you will face with when you stay on Mars, apart from air you need to breathe, no water, there's only sparse water found under the ground, cooler temperature you can protect yourself, but from radiation you'll have to hide under the ground. Regular storms on Mars, when difference in the temperature caused huge wind current and as a result intensive dense storms on the surface. You can observe in this video Mars without the storm and through the storm, when we absolutely can see any surface on the whole planet, will have impact on communication and exploration and colonization of the Mars. However, even this we can overcome. There is no technologies yet exist that will protect us from space and sun radiation on Mars. That will be the main problem why we're not sending people right now on that planet. But imagine we'll find a way staying under the ground on Mars. However, you need to get till the Mars. Nevertheless, it takes about 8 months or so to travel from Earth till Mars, one way. So you have to spend 16 months in the open space. When we're traveling into the space to the space stations orbiting around the Earth, we're still protected from galactic space radiation, we're still protected from sun radiation by magnetosphere or geomagnetic field of the Earth. Physically, Earth shelters us from sun and space radiation, at least from one direction. And the old space station, they're just floating in the higher levels of the atmosphere where there's still protection by geomagnetic field of the Earth from radiation. And still, people have limitation. We can't spend more time in the space station when it starts exceeding radiation in your body, and you will have to reduce your dosage by going back on the Earth. With traveling into open space, there's a different story. There's absolutely no protection, not from the Earth in any other planet. And the space travelers will be absolutely exposed to 2 types of radiation there. The average amount of this radiation that will people be exposed to the traveling from Earth till the Mars will be exceeded the normal dosage for preserving the health of these people. More probably problems like cancer, other disease, or just permanent damage to the tissue in the body will be the result of that. The spacecraft we're creating these days not good enough to protect us from that radiation. So we're still working on technologies to create bigger, larger, huge spacecraft and new technologies to protect people from radiation during the travel. But it's not feasible these days, and it's not going to happen in the next 10 years, realistically. And remember, you have to stay on the Mars some time. You're not going to travel there to stay one day on that planet, and you have to travel back. Therefore, there are too many problems with radiation for us to travel to the Mars these days or during the next 5-10 years. There is a proposition by NASA or United States government by 2033 the human will be landed on the Mars. Researchers, engineers putting a lot of money and efforts to develop technologies to do so. However, you need to understand realistically that in the modern economical situation on our planet and with modern technologies, it's probably not going to happen so soon. It's more reasonable, effective cost for us to send robots who are affected by radiation, but they're not humans. They can stay there for many years and perform research for us on the Mars surface without putting in risk human lives and spending enormous amount of money to building sophisticated crafts and building sophisticated shelter on the Mars to stay several people there. Although it sounds so amazing, one day, soon enough, we will land on the Mars. There's other problems with that. If we look in the history of Mars exploration up to date, we see that it's following by a lot of failures. Since 1960, about 43 spacecraft attempted the missions on Mars, and only 14 finished the missions for successful. There are problems with communication with the Mars. There's problems with environment on its surface, very cold temperature, toxic soil for any organisms and human being. Therefore, we can't find yet the life on its surface. However, there could be some life under the ground, deep down, but we can't dig so deep yet using the rovers we have these days. There's problems with navigating the spacecraft so they successfully land on the Mars, and they continue to get the sun radiation, so the solar panels keep feeding the batteries, and it's not always going well. With the human mission, it'll be too high risk to send people to explore the Mars with the current situation we have. Another big problem, which many people not think about, it's the contamination of the Mars with earthly bacteria and life forms. We already landing the spacecraft and other equipment on the Mars, and there's several spacecraft orbiting the Mars, and probably it's already happened some contamination of the Mars. However, because of this toxic environment on the surface, or probably if any bacteria survived the travel till Mars, they probably died there. As I say, there's this type of organisms, extremophiles, who can preserve in very, very extreme condition with high radiation, or at least the type of zygotas or forms they preserved and wait for the better condition to start the life again. With colonization Mars with humans, we need to surpass this understanding that we're gonna bring life forms to the new planet, and it will cause huge ecological problem for that planet. Therefore, colonization of the Mars sounds very intriguing, exciting, and comforting, knowing that our Earth planet will be not the only place where we can live in case of any catastrophic events, ecological events, or big asteroid impact on our planet, which can destroy our civilization. And even though it seems like colonization of ours just on the tip of our fingers, just here, we're already ready to do so, there are too many problems, economical, ethical, physical, just engineering problems to go there, that for now, I think it still stays as a beautiful idea rather than tomorrow's reality.